So the first lecture for Physical Wellbeing 1, ES 101, is going to deal with a healthy life. Ultimately, it's very good for individuals to have healthy lives, and we want to define what a healthy life is. And really, that's what we're trying to achieve through this curriculum at Truett-McConnell College is how do we create wellness and health for a lifetime? The concept of healthy living is a multidimensional concept, or it should be considered multidimensional. And in all reality, it has not been always considered to be multidimensional. In fact, 50 years ago, even 100 years ago, when people considered a healthy lifestyle, they just simply said, well, if you're healthy, if you are absent of disease or illness, you have a healthy lifestyle. Now, 100 years ago, we're going to find out that infectious diseases were much more common. Things like influenza, and influenza was a much larger killer than it is today. But influenza and bacterial infections were the major illnesses and diseases that affected culture. And so, if you didn't have these illnesses, if you were free of these illnesses, it was just kind of considered to be a state of health, or you were considered to be in a state of health. So 100 years ago, this might have been acceptable, but now we have medicines and we have more knowledge on health and well-being and on physiology, and just simply defining healthy living as being either the absence of illness or disease, you're healthy. If you have illness or disease, you're unhealthy. Really, we have to begin to think if this is totally acceptable. So health, really, we're looking at this as a overall description or condition of an individual's body and their mind, or the state of their mind. So if you're free of mental illness, if you're free of physical illness, then you might have health. But then the question comes, does that mean that you have healthy living or you live a healthy lifestyle? You can see the cartoon here, two individuals sitting on a couch. He's got a cigarette or a cigar hanging out of his mouth. They're watching television, pretty sedentary. And he says, I'm thin, so I must be healthy. And so he's saying, I'm absent of the condition known as obesity, so that means I'm healthy, right? So yeah, maybe his overall condition of his body, he might have some attributes of being healthy, but overall, he probably isn't healthy. He probably is not participating in a healthy lifestyle. And that's because we're going to define it more than just based off of health. We're actually going to define it based off of some additional parameters, including wellness and also fitness as well. So why can't we just simply say, if I don't have disease, I'm healthy and I'm living a healthy lifestyle? And if I do have disease, I'm unhealthy and I'm living an unhealthy lifestyle. Well, part of the problem here is that when we really consider health or overall condition of the body, many of these conditions are going to be determined by uncontrollable factors. Okay, so uncontrollable factors. Health of individuals is going to be affected by genes and heredity. You can't change either of those, so they're uncontrollable. We're also going to be affected by aging. There is no magic pill to reduce the effects of aging. Everybody is going to continue to age. There's also differences in health and susceptibility to certain conditions due to gender and sex of the individual. The ethnicity of an individual also plays into the overall health. So these are all very much uncontrollable conditions that can affect your overall health. So, you know, you may be a certain gender, or you may be a certain age, or have a certain genetic makeup. And does that just simply mean that Well, if you have the genes for certain types of cancer, you're going to have cancer, you're going to be unhealthy, so you're going to live your entire life in a state of unhealth, where you're going to have no healthy living. That's not really a great way to define this, because there's so much more to this than just simply the absence or the presence of disease. Primarily when we talk about health, and really when we talk about correcting poor health to regain good health, we ask, do you go to the doctor, or did you go to the doctor? So we go and we seek medical attention. So seek medical attention. So this is for our corrective action. So when we go from being healthy to unhealthy, we seek medical attention for corrective action. And primarily, when you go to a doctor's office for maybe a cold or the flu or something that needs to be treated to get you back to school or back to work, you're simply given a prescription or some other remedy that's going to help you manage the illness and the disease. And what that means is you're going to be made comfortable, or you're going to be given a strategy to rehydrate, or you're given all of these different types of strategies so that you can manage that illness. And this allows your immune system, the physiological system that deals with defense against microorganisms and disease and illness, it allows the immune system to take over and to do its job and to correct the illness or the disease. Now, this strategy is very costly. There's many medical costs associated with this, and this sort of strategy can be very expensive. And it's a conversation that we're having in our country right now with changes to healthcare laws, trying to provide additional access to healthcare, and things are very, very expensive. It also this strategy results in time away from your responsibilities. So things like school or work or family or other responsibilities. And so using this strategy of corrective action, so you become sick, you become unhealthy, you're no longer living a healthy lifestyle, we use corrective action, and that corrective action actually is going to prolong things like time away from work. It's going to increase medical costs. So managing illness, it's necessary frequently, and I'm not saying that it's not necessary, but it does prolong these other things, and it does cost more money to treat an individual, and it does induce time away from your responsibilities. So because it does prolong and increase medical costs, really we need to begin to look at this philosophically as this is not really a fix. This is one method that we need to use in order to manage our health, but is this the only way that we should manage health? As long as you're healthy, you don't need medical attention, then you get sick and you go and get medical attention to become healthy again. And there's this sort of endless cycle of going from health to unhealth to getting it corrected over and over and over again, rising up medical costs, increasing time away from work. And so this really begs the question, is this an acceptable strategy for healthy living? So is this acceptable? Is this enough for healthy living? And I'm going to submit to you today that it's not. And what we should really be looking at is how wellness plays into the equation of healthy living. So the proposal that I've just given you about healthy living would be a unidimensional, centered around simply health. What's happening with your health? Are you sick or are you not sick? If you're sick, go and get the corrective action so that you can become healthy again, so that you can move back into that healthy lifestyle. But I'm going to submit to you today that if we can prolong or prevent the onset of illness and disease, reduce the number of times that an individual is sick, reduce this cycle of going to the doctor, getting healthy, going to the doctor, getting healthy, that we'll actually be able to reduce time away from your responsibilities. We'll be able to reduce medical costs. And so it's very important that we don't just look at this unidimensional healthy living model, but we actually begin to model it as multidimensional, and we begin to look at things like wellness and fitness. So wellness, in one sense, we can really consider this to be a way for us to control the controllables. Okay, so controlling the controllables. And what I like to think of here when I begin to think about wellness is we're taking health, this idea of health, or the absence of illness and disease, the overall condition of the body, the state of the mind, taking health to the next level. And so we go from this strategy of responding to illness to preventing illness. So prevention here is going to be a key word associated with wellness. And prevention is not something that is just going to occur on its own. This is actually going to require knowledge, and it's going to require action. And so I'm going to refer to the knowledge and action as decision making. You want to be well informed, and you want to act upon the right thing to do. So we have to look at what can be controlled. How can we manage our risk factors? So many of these were things that we could not really control. These risk factors, things like your sex, your age, and your heredity, but there's actually going to be some that we can control. In fact, many of the factors of our lifestyles are under decision-making control. So most are controllable. And in reality, there are two factors, the top two factors, that if we can control them, we can actually probably reasonably reduce healthcare costs by about 70% here in the United States. So what are these top two controllables? The top two controllables are smoking, and number two is physical activity. So if we reference back to this cartoon here, you know, he's saying, well, I'm thin, right? I'm thin, so I must be healthy. But he's not controlling the controllables. He's smoking, and he's participating in sedentary behavior. And so really, he may be healthy at this point. He may have absence of disease. But because he's not controlling the controllables, he's at a higher susceptibility for certain disease conditions. So even though he might be healthy, he's not living a healthy lifestyle because he's not incorporating this idea of wellness and prevention. So why don't we define wellness in a little bit more detail? For many of you, wellness has been a concept that's probably been part of your life, or at least you've been aware of the term wellness for most of your life. But wellness is actually a relatively new concept. And we'll talk about that in just a second, but to kind of give you a kind of lead in here on defining wellness, 100 years ago, you were considered just to be fortunate if you were alive. And now today, when we begin to look at health and wellness, now we consider ourselves not simply to be lucky that we're alive, but we're lucky because we can do certain things physically or mentally. Maybe we can ride a bike when we're 80 years old, or we still can think clearly because we're mentally healthy after our 75th birthday. So these are now new concepts that are beginning to rise. It's not about health anymore. It's about being healthy and being well also. So wellness, when we look at wellness, we put it into a model so that we can understand it. Whenever you hear the term in science, a model is just simply a way that humans with an inaccurate mind in a intangible mind can put together something that is easier to understand, put together concepts and model concepts that are more difficult to understand. And we do that with wellness. We actually model wellness, and the most common model that we have currently is called the Wellness Continuum. So the Wellness Continuum. And I actually do have here a picture of the Wellness Continuum. So you can see that you have many ribbons. Each of them kind of have their own area of wellness, so to speak. Each of them is called a dimension. There are a total of 7 dimensions in this model. And each of these dimensions deals with a specific aspect of wellness. One of those dimensions is physical wellness, and this relates to our overall fitness and our health. But there are 6 other concepts that are important too. Emotional wellness. Do you have the ability to properly deal with your feelings? Intellectual, and maybe I'll just give you these definitions instead of writing them down. The intellectual wellness deals with your mind and your intellect. Do you have ability to problem solve? Do you have ability to think clearly? The 4th is interpersonal. And interpersonal wellness deals with your social relationships. Do you know how to interact in social settings? Things of this nature. The 5th dimension of wellness is the spiritual. Now, this model is a secular model, and so typically the spiritual wellness component is defined as your beliefs and a worldview. And I would argue that for proper spiritual health, this is an individual relationship with Jesus Christ, and your worldview is a Christian worldview rather than just some diffuse worldview defined by social norms or some type of morality construct. The environmental wellness is the idea that we live in an environment, we have surroundings, and as long as that environment is safe and is clean, it's going to promote personal wellness or your physical wellness and emotional wellness. And then lastly is the financial wellness. Do you know how to manage your finances? Do you live within your means? So each of these 7 aspects of wellness, from the physical to the financial, each of them is an important component in defining wellness and adding this together as a dimension of healthy living. And so whenever we consider this model, we're thinking of threads within a fabric. And this idea of threads in a fabric, even though each dimension is individual, there's an individual physical dimension, an individual emotional dimension, etc., because they're still in the fabric, what happens in each of these areas of wellness is going to have influences and effects on other aspects. So strains in your finances can lead towards strains emotionally, higher levels of stress. There may be interpersonal issues, arguments with spouse or with other family members due to those strains in your financial. So each dimension affects other aspects or the other dimensions. In the example, I've given the idea of poor money choices may lead to poor emotional wellness. Additional stress due to some poor choices that maybe you've made with your money. And there are other examples as well. So health, again, defined as this idea of absence of illness and disease. Wellness is controlling the controllables. So how do we really become healthy? And how do we stay healthy? And that's a question that I'm hoping to answer throughout the rest of these lectures as we move through ES 101. So how do we become healthy and or stay healthy? Again, this idea of wellness, I've already defined wellness and have indicated that wellness is actually going to be a newer concept. And I gave the example 100 years ago. We considered if we were in good health, if we were absent from disease, we were lucky to be alive. Today we say, well, it's more than just being absent from disease. It's living a life that's full of wellness. And so we're maybe lucky to be able to do certain things at certain ages that 100 years ago we might not even really considered. Now, this idea that wellness is becoming more of a dimension in healthy living is really fleshed out in our life expectancy. And life expectancy has been increasing. In fact, in 1900, life expectancy was 47 years old. Today, life expectancy is around 78 years of age. So this is a whole additional 31 years of our life expectancy. This figure here shows these changes from 1900 to the modern day. And you can see that life expectancy has primarily been increasing from every year from 1900 to the data that I have here is through 2011. And part of the reason that this is occurring, these changes in life expectancy, one reason is due to infectious diseases. 100 years ago, infectious diseases were very prominent within our culture. And in fact, influenza was a very large killer. Polio was a very large killer of Americans prior to 1900. But as we've had advances in modern medicine, as we've been able to understand physiology better, we're being able to control these infectious diseases through vaccination programs. There are many areas around the world where it looks like polio is almost entirely extinct. There's numbers now that are suggesting that polio will be completely eradicated from the human population within the next 20 to 30 years. And because of these changes in infectious diseases, what we're beginning to deal with now are called chronic diseases. So if you get influenza, it's pretty easy to treat influenza, or you can even get the vaccination and you may not even be infected with the influenza virus. So along with this change from infectious disease to chronic disease, we've gone from managing disease to now controlling. We've had this shift in disease management from controlling the disease or controlling the infections to preventing chronic diseases. So we've had this shift in disease management where we've gone from infectious disease, controlling, to chronic diseases, which control does not work as well as prevention. There is not any really great vaccinations against cancer, but there are great strategies on preventing or at least prolonging the onset of cancer for many individuals. So even if you're predefined genetically for breast cancer or some type of cancer, you may be able to prolong the onset of this chronic condition called cancer through certain strategies: reduction in smoking, increase in physical activity. So this means today, as we survey healthy living, your choices matter. Figure that I have here is the actual causes of death in the United States. So these aren't specific chronic diseases, cancer, heart disease, etc. These are the things, the choices that people make that lead towards contribution towards cancer, rates of cancer, rates of heart disease. And you'll notice that the top two, tobacco and obesity. Now you see there's a little star there next to obesity. And really that star is not because of body weight, and we're actually going to talk about body weight, but that star is actually because obesity comes with lower levels of physical activity. So tobacco use in all forms, including smoking cigarettes, about 18.1 deaths per year as a percentage. 18% of all deaths in a given year are due to the choice to smoke tobacco. About 4.6, we'll call it 5%, is due to obesity, physical inactivity. So you can see that we have a lot of things that we can control. We don't have to smoke. We can be physically active. We don't have to consume alcohol. Microbial agents, obviously there are still some infectious diseases that are difficult to control that still cause disease, but that number, that microbial agents 100 years ago was nearly 100%. So it's a very important, and the United States government even thinks it's important, to promote wellness within a culture or within a society. Truett McConnell is actually saying through this course that it's important for our students to be given access to information on wellness and on healthy lifestyle and healthy living. And so we're trying to promote the wellness of our student body, promote the wellness of our staff and our faculty. In the United States, in addition to personal promotion of wellness, governments also are promoting wellness, from the local municipalities all the way up to the federal government. And there are many different initiatives aimed at reducing smoking behaviors and increasing physical activity. The Department of Natural Resources here in the state of Georgia has a Get Out and Walk Your Dog program, using your pets, such as your dog, to induce or promote wellness and promote physical activity. Private companies and companies are now beginning to include time away from work during the day for their employees to go out and to visit a gym or participate in some sort of activity program. They have smoking cessation programs, and all of these ideas of promoting wellness, whether they're individual initiatives or government initiatives or corporate initiatives, these are all being pursued because it's well understood that an unhealthy population is a significant burden. Now, some organizations are going to look at this burden and they're going to say that that burden is a heavy financial burden. Employers may say, our healthcare costs are too high. We have too many people who are using the healthcare system, too many healthcare dollars that are going out of the budget. But in addition to a heavy financial burden, unhealthy populations are known to be less creative populations. This means less innovation, less new products, less things that are going to make life more fun or easier or better for individuals. In addition, unhealthy populations are associated with lower levels of wealth. So the government and private entities and personal individuals have identified that promoting wellness is a very important thing for a population. And in particular, I want to talk real briefly about a program. This is a government program from the National Institutes of Health and the Center for Disease Control. It's called Healthy People 2020. And actually, we've had several versions of Healthy People. Each of them is given a target date. So the current target date is the year 2020. And the Healthy People program, it has these different targets that by 2020 we want to have this change occur. So you can see here, physical activity. In 2012, 20.6% of adults aged 18 years and older met the current federal physical activity guidelines. So that's a pretty low portion of our population. They adjust these numbers by age, so 2020 they actually want 20.1% of the population, but that's actually a higher level of the population than 20.6 just because there's going to be more individuals in the United States, and we're going to have additional age adjustment requirements. Individuals who are going to be younger, infants and things like that. So they adjust those numbers. It's been indicated the target has already been met. Another target is adult obesity. Right now, 35.3% of adults age 20 and older. They're looking to reduce that to 30.5%. So that's a 13.6% decrease that's still needed by 2020. So you kind of get the picture here. The Healthy People initiative is going to have these individual benefits with attached targets. So individual benefits. Things like better weight management. Better ability to prevent disease and injury. Goals in maintaining mental capacity. So each of these are individual benefits for the population, things that will make our population healthier. They all have a target, and the government is providing additional programs and weight loss and smoking cessation programs through a variety of local and state agencies. Now, still working through this vein of how do we maintain or how do we become more healthy, one of the main models that's used, and this is the last part of the conversation here on a healthy life. You're about to begin to collect through these labs that you're going to be doing. You're about to begin to collect information about yourself. And some of the information you may be surprised. You may be a little bit surprised. Maybe you're overweight, or maybe you're eating too many unnutritious foods, or maybe your smoking is affecting you more than you realize. And you're like, you know what, I got to make some changes. So if we're going to be trying to maintain or trying to improve our health, we're going to have to go through change. And again, we're going to model behavior and behavioral change. So this is a behavioral change model so that we can better understand how this may actually be happening from a psychological perspective. The behavioral change model, this is, again, just a way that we try to think about how an individual undergoes some sort of change. So let's use a hypothetical individual who maybe needs to increase their physical activity. What are the things that are going to happen as they go through this behavior change? The behavior change model is also known as the trans-theoretical model. More common, kind of the layman's term here, also known as stages of change. So as you begin to undergo this change or a specific change, and I'm using the top example here, physical activity, you may go through these different stages of change. The first part of the model is pre-contemplation. And maybe some of you are in this pre-contemplation stage, and right now you don't recognize that there are some problems that exist. And you're going to begin to collect data on yourself, and you're going to begin to realize, oh, yeah, I have a little extra body weight, or I'm more physically inactive than I should be. And so you move from that pre-contemplation stage into contemplation. So we go from pre-contemplation into contemplation. This now means that you recognize that a problem exists. Now, as you begin to recognize that a problem exists, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to do anything. You shift over to sort of the moving towards corrective action as you begin to prepare. So once you realize that there's probably an issue, you may begin to make some preparation. This is planning to take action. This is followed up by actually taking action. So you go about modifying behavior. So if it's physical inactivity, you may say, I'm getting none now. I want to start walking an hour a week throughout that 7-day time period. So you begin to walk, or you begin to participate in physical activity. You begin to take that action. Maybe you've done this for 2 to 6 months or longer, and you're like, you know what, I'm physically active. I'm becoming more physically active. I'm beginning to see benefits to my physical activity. I want to begin to maintain this new healthy habit that I've created. And so you move into the maintenance stage, and this could last anywhere from 6 or more months, where you maintain that new behavior so you continue to participate in routine physical activity. The end of the model, which is a theoretical end only for some certain behaviors, and not all behaviors, is termination. And what I mean is, take physical activity, for example. You don't gain the benefits of physical activity over a 1-year period. Physical activity must be maintained throughout your entire life to continue to gain that healthy attribute that's produced by physical activity. Termination is this idea that you've been able to accomplish something, and you no longer need to continue to take action. And so maybe you actually stopped smoking. You're no longer a smoker, and so you don't have to wear nicotine patches anymore, or you don't have to continue to go through some sort of educational class, because you've actually been able to maintain and no longer have this drive to smoke, or whatever the case may be. You may move into the termination phase. Now, for most of us, our behavior is not just simply going to be bound up in one attribute, such as physical activity. The example here, this picture that I'm showing here, shows that this individual may be in pre-contemplation for physical activity. Maybe they're not in this realization that they need to be more physically active than they are, but they do realize that their smoking is an issue, and they realize and are preparing to take action on becoming better, have a better diet, to have lower fat diet. So each of us is going to probably be in different areas of the behavioral change model, the stages of change model, for a variety of different behaviors. And this class, over the next 7 lectures, is going to be dedicated to trying to help you begin to identify some of these areas in your own life, to see if we can begin to build a more healthy lifestyle.